Hey guys, it's Mermaid Gemini, and today I'm going to be showing you a step-by-step tutorial on how to make a reusable menstrual pad without a sewing machine. Now, this is a lot easier than you might expect. Alright, here's what we're going to need. We're going to need polar fleece, which I picked up at Joann's. You're also going to want a patterned fleece, so that looks cute. And you're going to want a core, so I picked up a flannel from a local thrift shop. I picked something 100% cotton. You're also going to need some scissors and some needles. Also, extra pins are very helpful for this project, and of course you're going to need thread. Now this is all you're going to need for the project. First off, we're going to take our fleece, which is going to be our top layer. So what we're going to do is we're going to let this fabric be face down, and we're then going to place our pattern on top. Now, you can find a pattern from online, or you can use a reusable pad or a disposable pad to use to pin to your fabric. Now, I already have a reusable pad that I got from Tree Huggers, which is a great company, and I just went ahead and I pinned this down to my fleece. Now, don't be discouraged if you don't have fleece. You could also use a printed cotton. You could use a t-shirt, like the, jersey cotton, what they call it. Anything like that works as long as it's an absorbent layer. Now, I personally like fleece because I feel that it's nice and soft, and I also like that the blood just kind of seeps into it nicely. I know it sounds weird, but you'll understand later. Okay, so we pin this down. Now we can go ahead and start cutting around it. When you're cutting around this, you're going to want to leave about, I would say about 1/8 of an inch around the whole way, but you don't have to be super precise. Just kind of chop around it however you want. I made sure that my lines weren't perfect so that people, don't feel unmotivated. See, look at there, a little bit choppy. Oh well. And that's okay if it's choppy. We're going to go ahead and just sew around it later, and we're going to trim off all the excess. So go ahead and cut around your pattern or your pad, like I'm doing in this case. Okay, so once you have that, we're going to then take that piece and put it onto the piece of polar fleece and pin it down. Now the polar fleece is going to be what stops the blood from seeping onto you and everything around you. And also when you're cutting this, you can have it nice and flush with this piece because you're going to be sewing it to that piece anyways. Just to compare, this is what your pattern will look like on top of it. You're going to have that extra space all the way around. And we're just going to end up sewing around this point here and here. Okay, now we're going to make our core. For the core, you're going to want to either cut off the wings on your pattern, or what I'm doing here is I'm putting down the wings so that you can have an idea of the size of your core inside. And you're going to want to pin this down so that it makes it easier for cutting around it. Now don't worry if your lines aren't super straight, because what you're going to do is you're going to put it onto your other pieces and then trim it according. The nice thing about something like this is it has little lines that you can kind of use as a guide. Also, you don't have to use a flannel for your absorbent layer. You can use towels, you can use terry cloth, you can use all sorts of things. I just used a flannel from a thrift shop because it was what was readily available to me at the time. Okay, now what I'm doing here is I'm going to be cutting out another sheet, if you will, of the flannel. Now the more layers you have, the more absorbency your core is going to have. Now with this, I'm deciding to do 4, but I'm just showing you here cutting out 2 so that you have an idea. Okay, so I went ahead and now I have 4 layers. And I'm just going to unpin what we had previously pinned because we are going to be not sewing the whole thing together quite yet. We're going to take our top fleece and we are going to pin our core to the top like this. Okay, so our core is going to be onto our fleece like so. You're going to want to make sure that it's nice and straight. And the reason we're going to sew this down is so that your cord doesn't like get all bumpy and, you know, move around weird. Okay, so we're going to start by sewing around. Now this is the part that I'm going to demonstrate a couple times in the video, so if you don't get it right away, don't stress. So what we're going to do first is a front stitch, like I just did there. And then I'm going to go in between the 2 points and insert my needle. This is going to be the back stitch. So just like so, right in the middle there. That's exactly how you want it. And you're going to pull it right through. Make sure it's tight. Okay, so you're going to front stitch, like so. Pull it through. Nice and tight. And then you're going to go to the midpoint between the 2 stitches, like so. Push it through. And you're going to pull it tight again. Now if you didn't catch this yet, don't worry, I'm going to go over it a few more times. Okay, so this is what it's going to look like once you're done, and you're going to want to pin this now to your polar fleece. You're going to pin it down and you're going to sew almost the entire way around, but not quite, because you want to leave a little part open by the wing so that you can turn it inside out. So here again, I'm showing you again how to back stitch. So you're going to front stitch first, like this, and you're going to pull it tight, and then you're going to just flip it over if you need to and find the midpoint like that. If it's not perfectly centered, don't stress out, it's going to be okay. I'm doing this nice and slow just so you can get the idea. Perfect, just like that. Okay, so I'm just going to show this a few more times. Now doing a stitch like this is going to make sure that everything looks nice and flush when you turn it inside out, because if you just do a whip stitch, you'll get some gapping and it won't look as nice. Okay, so you can see I sewed almost the entire way around except for there. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn it inside out just to show you puckering. So do you see that puckering there? We're going to trim it so that the puckering is gone. And see there how it's also kind of big because we didn't trim yet? We're just going to turn this inside out again just so we can trim it up and make it sit nice and flat. Okay, so we're going to trim that off there. And trim off the top. Now you can cut pretty close to your stitches, but don't cut like on top of your stitches. Okay, and here's the snippy bit. So you're just going to kind of snip maybe 3 or 4 little snips in like that so it removes the puckering. And that's what it'll look like when the puckering's gone. Okay, now we're going to just tuck in this little seam here on the side, and we're going to sew it shut so that it looks nice and clean. This part you could do a whip stitch, but I'm going to show you how to do something called a ladder stitch. So here you are, ladder stitch. So you're just going to sew like that. You're going to grab some of the fabric with a needle and pick it up, and then you're going to grab some of the fabric on the other side with the needle and pick that up there too. Okay, so now you can use a button from the flannel or a button you have laying around, and you're going to make 2 dots just a little bit away from the button. You don't want it too close, just a little bit farther. Okay, and then you can sew your button on the opposite wing on the fleece side. So once your button is all sewn on, nice there, you can go ahead to the opposite wing where you drew the dots and make a snip there. And that snip is going to be your buttonhole. So test it out and make sure your button fits in there nice. So you can see here our button does fit there. Now it's time to just do a simple whip stitch all the way around the buttonhole. This is going to make sure so that the buttonhole, you know, doesn't look wonky. It's going to kind of keep the fabric nice and together and prevent any fraying and things like that. Okay, so this is what your first pad will end up looking like, something along these lines. Thank you!